Okay, so you're in the market for real estate and you want to know how to get the best value for your offer. How do you know how to find the secrets about how a property is valued? Well, the best way to know that is to know what is in an appraisal. An appraisal has the intrinsic value of what a property is worth, not the extrinsic value, which we'll talk about in a minute, or what's called curb appeal. So there's 5 things you need to know in order to get the best value when you're making an offer on a property. Let's just start with number one, and we're going to look at this from the appraisal standpoint. So if you understand the appraisal standpoint or understand what goes into appraisal in the beginning, when you're looking at a property, you could also factor that information into the property as to what kind of value you could expect to have and how to find big intrinsic value by understanding the most important things, the 5 most important things in an appraisal. Starting with number one. Number one is comes up with the square footage. The square footage determines most of the value of a property. And so what you're looking for is the price per square foot. In every listing, you're going to have a price per square foot. And it depends on what area the property's in, if it's in a good neighborhood. All of that is important. But on the average, you can determine if the price per square foot is going to give you a good value. And as a rule of thumb, if you're paying more than $325 to $350 per square foot, you're generally going to be in a situation where you're paying too much for the property. So in this market, depending upon where you're buying, you're going to want to keep the price per square foot down below $315 a square foot. And if you can get it down below $300, all the better. And so the next thing you need to recognize is that the square footage aspect of the property is going to determine what kind of comps are being used. Generally, the appraiser has to gather comparables based upon the square footage of the property you're buying. They need to be similar in square footage. And so what I would do, what's important to do when you're looking for real estate and you're going to make an offer on something, you should have your real estate agent run comparables. All the comparables of the properties that have sold in the past 6 months. And therefore, you should look at where those comparables came in relation to what offer you're going to make. What was the value they sold at and what offer are you making on those same comparables? Believe it or not, many buyer's agents do not even pull comparables and look at the comparables compared to the offer you're making, which is crazy, but might be because it's in a seller's market that's happening a lot. So number one, price per square foot and the square footage of the property is crucial. Number two is marketability. Is the property marketable? What does that mean? Marketability is one of the most important things in order to have good value in a purchase transaction or even in a refinance. And what is that? What is the aspects of marketability? Marketability means that the property is easy to sell. A lender is interested in the fact that the property would be easy to sell. And also marketability determines that most of the buyers in the marketplace would want this particular property. So in general, most people have family members. On the normal demographic of people across the United States, there's 4 family members. It would be mom and dad and 2 kids. Based upon that, the idea is that marketability is a property should have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath as part of its amenities. So without 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, the property becomes less marketable. So it should have at least 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. If you have 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, that's called a functional obsolescence. 1 bath is absolutely not desired by most people. So you're going to miss a lot of buyers if you got a 2-bedroom, 1 bath scenario, or even go down to a 1 bedroom, it's even worse. So what happens with a property is marketable, more people are willing to make an offer on it, more people are willing to own it. And so the 3-2 is an important aspect of that marketability situation. And if you have situations where most people prefer yards, front yards and backyards, that's a marketability issue. And it's going to make the property much easier to sell and more marketable to the majority of borrowers that are out there, which means also there's a lot of comparables for that property. So we hear things like when I call an agent and say, hey, this is a yurt, or it has a dome on it, or it has it's an octagon. And so all of those are not good if the property has those issues on there. We had a client call me and say, oh my gosh, this thing is a family camp It has outdoor showers. It has all these things that are not comparable to other properties. So when we talk to the listing agent about it, he says, well, this property is unique. Unique is not good. Unique is never good in a real estate transaction as far as properties are concerned. So if you have a lot of weird things on that property that can't be compared to other property, that's very bad, because those things are going to be priced in the sale and you're not going to be able to compare them to other properties. For instance, we had somebody had a waterfall in the middle of their house. It was an amazing thing, but there were no other comparables that had waterfalls in there. The problem is the waterfall was priced into the house for like 80, 85 grand. And so therefore, guess what? Because no other properties had waterfalls in them, you couldn't use it. It wasn't an amenity that the appraiser was going to give any value for. And so when that happens, people get upset and they say, why didn't the appraiser give any value for that? And the answer is, we don't know what it's worth because we don't have any comparables that have that amenity. So, another guy said that he put in cherry wood frame windows, which was about 150 grand that he had to pay for that property. Well, there were no other properties that had cherry wood windows with 150 grand worth of value in them. And so we were short. That amenity was not a comparable amenity. So you have to watch. A 5,000 square foot shop, maybe something men would love, and it's certainly going to cost a lot. But if there's no other comparables that have shops that are of that large, you're not going to be able to comp that property. So unique and weird, you want to stay away from it unless you want to pay a lot more in sales price than what that property is going to appraise for. Next is views. Views are very important to value. So if you have water views like lake or ocean views, that's going to add as much as 40% to the value of the property. Panoramic mountain views are also important. We see panoramic, you look out the window and you can see mountain views forever, all the way across. And these views should be viewed from the living room looking out the window. It shouldn't be something where you have to stand on a chair and look out a top bathroom window to see it. Oh, I see it, standing on your tippy toes. You're not going to get credit for views in that situation. Panoramic views of mountains can bring anywhere between 20 to 40% in value. So views are an important aspect of an appraisal. Fourth is neighborhood. Neighborhood is important. That's why you need a local agent, because what neighborhood you buy in can determine what value is going to be. I mean, if the neighborhoods that you're not buying in could have issues that you may not thinking about. It might be close to commercial property, which is not a good thing if you're buying a residence. There could be nuisances like noises or smells. It could have a high traffic area. So if that neighborhood is on a major main street, that traffic is going to be not a good thing, and it's going to adjust your property downward. So neighborhoods are important. If it's high crime, you're not going to get the values if it's known as an area that's has high crime in it. So all of those things are important. The neighborhood. Also, some neighborhoods have particularly small homes in them. They only have 1 and 2 bedrooms. They don't have a lot of large homes, and that's going to be an impact, especially if you buy a property in a smaller neighborhood that has much larger square footage and much bigger bedroom and bathroom sizes. And if all the rest of those comps are farther away, you're going to pay for what we call a monster. A monster is a property that is basically bigger and better and nicer than everything else in the surrounding neighborhoods. So you don't want to be buying a monster. And so that's very important. The last thing, fifth, is age, or what we call the effective age. How old does the property look? Is the property in good shape? Is it comparing it to a property that looks worn and 30 years old? There's going to be a huge difference in value there. It could be as much as 100 grand between a property that has a young effective age. How old does it look is the effective age. The actual age is the age that it is, but appraisers put in their effective age. That means how old does it look? So those things are all the most important things in coming up with value and what you're getting in intrinsic value. Now let's talk about extrinsic value. Extrinsic value are things you can't comp, like the waterfall. Those are all extrinsic value because they're not going to be able to be considered in an appraisal. A kitchen that has a lot of floor space might be something that's considered value, but you're not going to get a lot of intrinsic value in the appraisal. You're going to have external value for that. Curb appeal, how the property looks as far as when you're approaching it, that falls into the effective age scenario. Curb appeal will help sell a property. It doesn't give you a lot of intrinsic value. So those are the key things that you need to know if you're looking for real estate and how to make sure you're getting good intrinsic value. Now you have those 5 items and you can go and in your mind look at those things when you're making an offer on a property. Thanks for listening.